Risha said she'd be late. Hello! Risha said she'll
Hello.
be late.
Reed said she'll be late, but she'll be here. That's okay. We'll let her in
The
when she
opening
comes. So,
words of the first shooting the shit in a very long time.
yes, welcome to the first shoot of the shit in a very long time. So, we've had a month and a little bit off because of various sort of family issues, things that have been going on. So, this is our first one back for I think about 6 weeks, but we are here on World Refugee Day 2022 to talk about women refugees. So we're going to talk about the challenges and issues that women refugees face, and then how do we help them, how do we support them generally, how do we get them into the workplace, what do they need from us once they're in the workplace, how do we as employers support them, lots and lots of things to get through. So it's a nice gentle easy topic to come back on after a few weeks off. Hannah's there just coughing away. So first things first, Hannah Weinhold, what's your name and where'd you come from?
My name's Hannah Weinhold and I am from Grow Traffic and I'm here in Sheffield in the absolute glorious sunshine.
Yeah, you've got much better sunshine than we've got. We have had sunshine. It's been a nice day, but yeah, I mean, you look phenomenally bronzed and glowing and all summery, and Bake-Up looks a little bit miserable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm Rachel
what's your name
Weinhold.
and where'd you come from?
Rachel Weinhold from Bake-Up. I'm Hannah Weinhold's sister, other founding member of Shooting the Shit. So good to be back. Good to be back. Hannah, anything exciting happened to you this week? Or last week? You had a lovely week off, didn't you?
I was off work, yeah. I had a really nice week and I went shopping, and Primark have got trainers at the moment that are white with like orange print, or high tops that are white with lemon print. And I got the orange ones and they're bringing me all levels of joy. And I don't care that you say I look like a toddler. I love them. And I think it's going to start a trend for me into toddler wear, dressing like a toddler again. I did go through quite a big phase of dressing like a toddler and I quite like it.
Is that when you were 2?
No, it was when I was 30.
Well, you've got to do the things that bring you joy, haven't you?
Right. And if orange trainers with oranges on, brings me joy, that's what I'm going to do. I might go and buy a second pair. What about you, Rachel? Good news, bad news, nice things?
Well, yeah, I mean, Rish is here. Let's let Rish in. Yeah, so here she is. Here she is.
Rish in the
Hello.
House. Are you right, girl?
Are you okay?
Yeah,
we're just doing. You're just doing things that have made us happy. So, and we're saying because we've had 6 weeks off. So the thing that has made me happy in the last 6 weeks is that I got a little foal. She's on foster from the local horse rescue charity. She's called Skip. She's 8 months old and she's blinking lovely. She's so tiny. Yeah, she's really small,
wait
but
to watch
she's
your
really
weird relationships
inquisitive.
Develop.
Yes, I know. Well, at least, I'm moving on from the rabbit, although I'm not, because my rabbit is right here, sat out in the sun with me. Yeah, of course. So, Rish, what's your name? Where'd you come from?
Oh, God, straight in. My name's Marisha. I'm from Leicester. I'm no longer in Leicester. So that's about it, really. So, yeah, and the sun makes me happy. So the very presence of the sun, over the past, few days or whatever is... right up my street, to be honest.
It does make such a difference, doesn't it? Like, I just feel as soon as I get that hit of vitamin D, as soon as I get the D, I'm much happier.
Same.
It is. And so what happy things have happened to you, Rish, since we last spoke?
Happy things?
Anything good happened?
Possibly. I very rarely look backwards. I just once it's happened, it's done. I'm on to the next thing. So,
Okay, well, what happy things have you got coming up?
No, hang on. So I've got a new found fun time. I basically served gin and tonics for the Jubilee weekend, so that was something new that I've not done before. So, that was all good.
Good.
Kind of it, yeah.
God, I forgot about that weekend.
I know, it seems like such a long time ago, doesn't it? Okay, well, there we go. Let's move on to our very light and happy subject to bring us back after our little break. Refugees. So, as I said before, World Refugee Day. It's always on the 20th of June, happens every year. It's the United Nations official day, and it's a day to just recognise and acknowledge the struggles that refugees are facing around the world. And I think this year, it seems to be even more pertinent than ever because obviously we've got the crisis in Ukraine, which as Europeans is right on our doorstep. That is creating a lot of refugees, a lot more refugees. So the United Nations reckons that at the moment there are about 100 million refugees in the world from various crises that are going on. So that's when you think about that in a proportion of how many, what the world population is, that's actually quite a lot, 100 million displaced people. And obviously 50% of those are women. But as we will go on to talk about, women disproportionately face challenges compared to male refugees. They are shat upon from a great height by society in a number of different ways, and they face a lot of struggles, not only first of all in trying to escape from the war-torn or famine-torn countries that they're from, but then when they find refuge in a new country, they face a whole new range of struggles that make life very difficult for them. So first things first, I have some facts and figures for you. Right, you ready? You ready for my stats? Okay.
We're ready. Born ready.
Born ready. 1 in 5 women, refugees, will have experienced sexual violence. So that's either rape or
1
sexual
in 5.
assault.
I am
1
amazed.
in 5.
I'm amazed that that's not higher.
Yeah, I thought actually that was quite a conservative estimate, but yeah, that's
especially when you think that in Egypt, for example, 98% of females have experienced sexual assault.
Yeah,
so
I think the bar for that is quite high. So I think they're counting that as kind of serious sexual assault or rape. But yeah, 1 in 5 women will have experienced that trauma. Women and children make up the majority of the people forcibly displaced from the war in Syria, mainly because the vast majority of the men have been killed. They've been killed fighting. So women are the vast majority of people fleeing Syria. I've already said 50% of refugees internationally displaced are women and girls. So, obviously that's a huge chunk of women and girls. When we talk about women refugees, we are talking about girls as well, so children.
Again, I would have thought that would have been higher because of the aforementioned men are dying and staying in fighting.
And I think there's mixed factors here. So again, a lot of people always say like, well, why are the men the refugees? A lot of the time, and we will talk about this a bit in a minute, the men are the ones that have the means to get out of a country. So they generally are the ones that have got the better educational qualifications. They've been better trained because they will have had careers in their original country. And also, the women often, they've got their elderly relatives to look after. They've got children to look after. Quite often what families will do is they will say, look, you're the able-bodied man. You leave. You go to a new country, you find work, you find us a house, and we will then follow. So the women tend to stay back with the children, with the elderly relatives, and then follow their husbands in a few years. And that's why often when you see all this sort of negative dogma about refugees, and they go, well, they're not women and children that are struggling. They're all fit and able-bodied men. Why don't they stay in their country to fight? And the answer is because they are the best person out of a family unit to be the ones to go and start a new life and find it. So yeah, 50% of the people fleeing now are still women. So complex, isn't it? It's complex. And my final fact is that refugees are bearing the brunt of the COVID-19 crisis globally, naturally, because they haven't got access to decent healthcare. They haven't got access to vaccines. They're often stuck in very, very crowded conditions as they travel, as they migrate, as they then get to refugee camps. They're stuck in horrendously cramped conditions, and diseases like that just absolutely sweep through refugee camps. So they are absolutely at the sharp end of the COVID-19 crisis globally.
Yeah, which is and hygiene is harder to maintain, and nutrition is harder to maintain, as doing the ration challenge, and there's a lot of reasons why they're incredibly vulnerable to it, and
absolutely
nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, and I mean, just on I don't want this to be the Rachel's Ration Challenge podcast at all, but the rations that you get rice and you get some pulses, you get a little bit of flour, you get a little bit of oil, and that's it. There is no fresh fruit, there's no vegetables, there's no protein. It's carbohydrate, it's starch, it's designed to keep you alive and basically fill you up, but there's no nutritional value to it whatsoever. So, when you think about what is somebody going to need to keep their body fit and healthy, there's nothing in there that's going to do that. There's no nutrients, there's no vitamins. They're absolutely your immune. I mean, I just do it for a week and I'm constipated to hell and I feel tired and sluggish by the end of the week. It's just horrendous. It really is. So, yeah. So I have some statistics for you. This is a not in the slightest bit fun quiz. Are you ready?
Ready.
So what percentage of women refugees do you think have experienced violence? And by violence, we mean severe violence that leaves bruises and broken bones and things like
that. Well, I would say like 80%, 90%, but based on the 1 in 5, I don't know. What do you reckon, Reish?
I was going at 80% as well, actually. So 75, 80%, something like that.
Oh, yeah, Reish, you're almost spot on. 70%. 70% of women. Now, as I said, that's severe violence. Yeah, that's not just a little bit.
Like,
yeah.
That causes
damage.
Yeah.
Broken bones, actual physical damage. Yeah, 70% of women. What percentage of women do you think has been raped?
20.
This is globally. So the statistic I gave you before was the ones that end in the UK, the ones that find their way to the UK. So this is how many women globally, refugees, have been raped.
Wow.
90.
Not quite. Not quite. You're a bit over.
I think as well that's something that would probably go undocumented. So I reckon it'd be quite low. So I think it might be more, probably maybe even less than 50%, because I just don't think it'll be collected.
That's a good point.
Yeah, Reish is on the money, and it's 44%. And I think the thing that we've got to think about in that as well is that we've got to think culturally, and a lot of it could be into relationship, into marriage rape, stuff like that, which some women might not even consider to be rape. So it's documented as 44%, but I bet if we really dug into that statistic, it'd be a hell of a lot more. Yeah. What percentage of women globally, refugee women, do you think have been tortured? Held captive and tortured?
Good Lord.
That's horrible.
Yeah,
absolutely right, Hannah. Yeah, spot on, 30%.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Terrifying, isn't it? That could be used rape as a means of torture. So that is women who are trying to escape from their home countries, and they have been captured and they have been tortured, or they've been tortured because they think like they're used as a weapon. Women are weapons of war, aren't they? They're means of getting to the men. So they will capture wives and mothers and girlfriends and stuff, torture them as a means of manipulating the men to either join the cause or give some information or whatever it might be. So 30%, which is terrifying. What percent of women have or will self-identify as having mental health issues?
I think that'll be high.
I don't.
I mean, I don't know how you couldn't have mental health issues if you're a refugee and your life was turned upside down.
Yeah.
I agree. I was like, well, but would they self-identify, or is it that's just what I'm going through, therefore I have to do it? I just have to put up with it. So
I mean, this is the issue, isn't it? So the figure is 50%, and 20% of those are classed as having acute mental health crisis. So, severe PTSD and stuff. But you're absolutely right. They are not living our life, and you think at the start of it, you might say, oh God, this is a mental health crisis. But actually, by the time you've lived through 1, 2, 3 years of war, and then you've escaped and you're in a new country, by that point, you might, your definitions of how
survival.
Classic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's phenomenal. And last one, what percentage of refugees are classed as destitute, according to the classification by the World Economic Forum? So living way, way under the poverty line.
I would say 75%.
Do you know what? It's 20. It's 20%. And again, and I think, again, this is down to the way this is classified, because what you've got to think is the number of, by the time they are refugees, yes, of course, they're living under the poverty line, but the people who are able to escape from countries, the people who have got the means and because to get into another country, you've got to meet certain criteria. So you've got to be educated, haven't you? You've got to have professional qualifications. You've probably got to be a doctor or a solicitor or whatever. So actually, the people that are able to get out of these countries are actually the high middle class and the upper class, the working class, those living in poverty. They've got no bloody chance, no chance whatsoever. So yeah, technically 20% are classed as destitute, but I mean that's a really phenomenal.
That's absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
disagree. It's such a good point, though, isn't it? Like we do tend. I don't know if this is like a kind of hangover from imperialism or what, but we do tend to think of them as being incredibly poor or uneducated, and actually they're just normal people that have had their lives turned upside down, and like you say, they've managed to pay someone to get out of a country. And if you haven't got the means to do that, if you're already not financially well off, you're fucked. Like you're never gonna get out.
Yeah, I mean that's it. If you look at the sort of the criteria to get into Britain, if you want to come here, we've now got this point system Australia, haven't we? But you've got to be of a certain level of professional skills, a certain skill set, as you say, educational attainments have got to be reached. And even if you're not going down that official route, even if you are fleeing and seeking asylum, you've got to have the means to pay for that. So you've got to either legally be able to pay for the plane and the boat tickets, or you've got to be able to pay a smuggler to get you out of the country. And they charge thousands and thousands. People are selling everything they have in order to just pay the smuggler to get them across the border. So, these are they've got to be people who have means in order to get out. Otherwise you've just got no chance. And that's the sad thing. If you think then by the time they get to this country and they have, or whatever country they're going to, they've got all those additional barriers. So talk to me about what challenges you think women refugees in particular will face when they've got out of a country and they're either on their way to or in a country of refuge.
I think obviously language is a big one. I can't imagine having to pick up and go to a new country and try and figure out the language as soon as I get there. And then financially, you might not be able to access your accounts and anything that you do have. You've just literally dumped yourself in a new country with very little. And I know as well as a lot of bureaucracy that is a huge barrier, that people have separated from their families when they first arrive and they're not allowed to see them. And like I know our dad wasn't a refugee, but when he first came to this country, he and his mum and his siblings had to go to one hostel and his dad had to go to another because they weren't allowed to mix, and he didn't see his dad for ages and stuff. And that's still the practice, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, they separate families. I think that financial point is really worth mentioning, because back to that point of you've got to have the means, but a lot of people, they have to liquidate every asset that they've got before they can leave. I mean, probably not likely to be able to sell your house, but they're going to sell every other thing that they've got so that they can have cash, because if once you've left that country, you're not going to be able to access your savings account or whatever, are you? It might stay there, but it'll be frozen for a while. So they're literally selling all of their possessions in order to come with a wad of cash. And then what do you do with it when you get here? You haven't got an address, you can't open a bank account. I mean, just the thought of it is terrifying. I'm going to travel across Europe next month to get to Mallorca by train and bus and taxi, and that's scaring me. If you're coming with your entire world in a bag and you've sold everything and you've got your wad of cash and your mobile phone and that's it, I just think,
yeah. I mean, how do you even figure out where you're going to go? to like get help? Like, what do you do? Just turn yourself in at the nearest police station?
I think it's that. I mean, yeah, for me, it's that. I don't know how else to put it, but there's that constant fear. Surely, there's got to be, like, are you safe? Basically, like if you like you say, if you get to somewhere and you go to the authorities that are there, are they just going to send you back? Are they going to do this, that, and the other? It's like, just everything, all that, crap that they've already had to contend with to get to wherever they've gone to. And then, there's the whole bunch of issues when you get there as well, not counted.
And I think that's
how people are towards, people that are seeking asylum or people that
Yeah.
are refugees. There's that whole, thing as well. Sound different, look different, therefore they're less worthy than we are. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that trust in authority is crucial because, again, you've got to think they're coming from a country where they couldn't trust the authorities. That's why they're fleeing. And most refugees, they're intelligent people. So they understand when they get to a country, they're probably the pariahs. They're not wanted. So, again, who are you going to trust? How do you know who you can trust and who you can't? How do you know who's a people smuggler and who isn't? You can't just turn up a police station. They'll send you away. So what are you going to do? I think as well, we need to think about the sort of culture, particularly for women. This is an added barrier. Quite often they're coming from very patriarchal societies, quite religious societies. We think particularly about sort of Syria. A lot of women, their husbands will have been the ones that dealt with everything. Their husbands will have sorted the mortgage and opened the bank account. So you've then got that added cultural barrier that all of a sudden, they're probably on their own. They're in a strange country. They don't speak the language and they're not used to going out and doing things for themselves and seeking employment and blah, blah, blah. So, that must just be even more terrifying, mustn't it?
I think as well, like with seeking employment, it's very difficult to get a job without a national insurance number. And you can't get a national insurance number like quickly, can you? Or like, how would you even access money or an income? Or it's very difficult. They kind of get put into the system and then left to fester.
And a lot of countries don't let refugees work for the first, however many months. In some cases, it's years after they arrive. So they've got that barrier. What you're supposed to do, you just sit there waiting for a system that you are unfamiliar with to deliver you the things that you need to go and get a job and support yourself and all the rest of it.
While everybody hates it because you're not working.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot to be said for. I mean, obviously, we talk from a UK perspective, UK centric perspective mainly, but I'm sure a lot of countries are also not properly equipped to be able to deal with refugees or for people seeking asylum. So there's actually not the right mechanisms in place to be able to do anything, to help them or to support them, not properly. And I say that only because I've had a very small insight into the Ukraine crisis, because I've worked on a project for Ukraine, and there's been part of the conversation is but those displaced Ukrainians want to work. They don't want to just go to a country and and take from society whilst they're there. They're more than capable. They've, like you say, had the means to be able to get out, and whilst they're there, it's a stopgap as far as they're concerned. I want to work here. I want to send my money. I want to be able to earn so I can go back home when this is all done.
Yes.
And actually, a lot of countries are like, oh shit, they're in now. Now what?
Yeah.
So,
and that's a really important point as well, Reece. This is the thing. We look as we often, because of the media, we get the words migrant, asylum seeker, illegal immigrant, all the rest. They're interchangeable. But a lot of refugees, it's a stopgap. They want to go home. They didn't ask for this to happen. They weren't voluntary economic migrants, going somewhere. They were fine. And then their country was torn apart and their lives were turned upside down. And they're coming somewhere to find safety, but they want to go home. So, we've got this mindset. I mean, at the minute, we're putting them on planes, or we're trying to, and send them to Rwanda and process them and blah, 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 after everything they've just been here to get, been through to get here. And you just think, just give them a safe bed for, a year, and then they can go home when things have calmed down, hopefully.
I will never understand.
Yeah. I think one of the... go on.
Sorry. I will never understand that migrants are the baddies and migrants are I think you've got a delay, Rachel. Migrants are the baddies, and migrants are, you know, an economic drain. I will never understand that because, like, just on a human level, like, have a bit of fucking empathy for other people and put yourself in that position. And also, like,
We'd be here if it wasn't for migrants, and you know, we wouldn't, you know,
the
like
three
we're
of us wouldn't be. Yeah, I
exactly,
know.
yeah.
Like,
You
have a
know,
little bit of fucking empathy for people. And also, like, people don't understand basic economics, do they? Like, if you're giving people if like you're giving people benefits, they're spending the bloody money in the country that they're getting the benefit in and paying tax. Like, for the love of God, I just don't get it. Like, how you can, and if anybody can shed some light on that, how you can possibly think that these people are like Kate, that Katie, what's her name, said, or what does she call them, like a plague or something of migrants. Like, how
isn't it? Like, surely there's the media's got the huge amount, you know, a huge part to play in the bullshit that they kind of spread, you know. And
yeah, but they're also feeding into what people actually think, aren't they? Like, it's chicken and egg.
Yeah, this is also true. It's you know, I think we do like to think that we're very, you know, far ahead and forward thinking as a country, but you know, a lot which shows that we're not. We've got a long way to go, right?
Yeah, like the media is responsible for some of it. They're giving a platform to it, but it's not like 200 like horrible dickheads in fat cat suits like telling the rest of people. Like, they are giving the people what they want to hear, and people are spouting it back, and people believe it. And you know, it's cyclical. It's not cyclical. It's what's the word? Like, it feeds each other.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Self-fulfilling. Yeah. So, like, I think we are just as a race very fucking unpleasant.
And so again, you know, this is the thing that adds again to that burden.
You are, Rach.
I always love these uplifting calls that we have, girls.
Yes, yeah. Cheer us up. They cheer us up.
As a species, we are the pits, aren't we? So, anyway.
Yeah, and this is it. So we make it even harder, don't we? You know, again, these women are already facing all of these challenges, and we make it even harder. So let's move on to getting women into the workplace. So refugee women into the workplace. How do we fix it? Yeah.
How do we solve this?
How do we solve it? So, I mean, one of the problems that we have is, again, going back to that sort of gendered patriarchal society that a lot of people are coming from. You know, I'm not saying ours is perfect, but we are a bit sort of further on. But a lot of the time then the women are coming, they have tended to be, if they have been employed in their country of origin, it will tend to be in roles that are sort of caring related. So they'll tend to have been teachers, they might have been nurses, you know, social care workers, that sort of thing. The problem is that then come into this country and they might, if they've even brought their qualifications with them, you know, do they translate into what we need in this country? So one of the biggest barriers that we face as sort of employers getting people in is, how does somebody prove a skill set? So we might be employing them for a certain job. If they haven't got the qualifications or they can't demonstrate that, you know, how are we going to see the level of skill that they're at so that we could employ them? Discuss.
I mean, I used to work on what was then the A4E project, which was getting long-term unemployed people back into work. So people that have been claiming job seekers for a long time back into work. And there were a few people on it that were really overqualified. And there were a couple of people that were, I don't know if they were migrants or if they were refugees, but there was one bloke and he was like a top-notch stonking software engineer, and he couldn't get a job in a factory sexing chickens because he couldn't communicate his skills in like the language that he was learning, English, efficiently. The software and like the programs that he was used to were slightly out of date because he'd not been working for a couple of years because of everything that had been going on, and nobody would give him a chance because I think probably like systematic racism. And it was a real shame. And I don't know if he ever managed to find a proper job or if he just spent his life packing shelves and sexing chickens.
I mean, there is a statistic that I shared on the social media page this afternoon about, I think it was 1.4 billion in lost revenue, they think, from not employing women into the workplace. So basically, if we put all the women refugees into the workplace, they would contribute 1.4 billion to the global GDP, and that is what we are losing by not doing. So we're losing a huge amount of resource and potential money, but playing devil's advocate here, you think if you are an employer, there are so many additional things that you're going to have to do to employ a refugee. So they're going to have to be really bloody worth it. Otherwise, I might as well employ a British person who's already here and got the qualifications, got a national insurance number, and blah blah blah. So you can kind of see why they don't. But the first thing that we've got to do as a society, if we want refugees to get into employment, is we as employers have got to bloody employ them. And if that means proving the skill set by doing, different types of assessments, or, judging people based on, giving them a chance, basically doing trials, that sort of thing, or maybe having some sort of, intermediary assessment of a college of basic language, maths, that kind of thing, then, we've got to do those things. But basically, we've just got to start employing them, haven't we?
But I do think there are a lot of governmental barriers to employing even just not a British national. And I think it needs to come from the top as well. It needs to be a lot easier for employers to employ someone that's not a British national.
There is certainly a lobbying piece that can be done there. So once we've got people employed, then the next thing that we're going to have to do is offer support. And there's two sort of sections to this. One is training. So they're probably going to need things like computer skill, additional training courses. So IT skills, they're probably going to need things like extra language classes, so learn how to speak English. They're probably going to need additional support in the sort of practicalities of doing their job and managing their time and all the rest of it. And then we've got additional mental health support. So again, thinking back, a lot of women, they're going to be suffering from PTSD. They're going to have massive trauma burden based upon them, and they're probably going to need help with things like childcare. They're not going to know where to source childcare. There might be a cultural barrier there in that, leaving your children with a stranger is not something that's normally done. Normally they would have the extended family as the support network. So leaving your child with a stranger, a childminder, in order to go to work, that might be a mental barrier for somebody that they're going to have to overcome. And as an employer, we've got to help support people through that. So, there are a lot of aspects to that, providing additional support, which again comes back to potentially why employers are not doing it.
Yeah, I do think there is quite a lot of support that comes through the job centre. So the job centre will support people onto ESOL courses, so English as second or other language courses, to help. It's assuming that they're working with absolute idiots, and often, obviously, a lot of the times they're not. I wonder if there's any agencies or anything that work exclusively with refugees and asylum seekers to help them find work. Kind of so like a recruitment agency to match them up, right?
Yeah, there are, and I'm going to put the links in. I've got a few links from a few charities that do that, so I will put them in the chat later. But yeah, I mean, it's a kind of mix of really practical support and kind of more general support. Hannah, stop playing with your microphone. You're making a horrendous noise.
Oh, I'm
stop fiddling with it. That's all right. Just hold it steady. It sounds like you're in a wind tunnel. But yeah, I mean, things like, just helping people get on the right bus at the right time. All that sort of stuff. Again, back to language barriers. That's going to be really hard if you don't know the area, isn't it? So, yeah, but there are charities that will help people and be advocates for people as well.
What are you going to say,
things.
I was just going to say, I think it's, I'm going to say it because it's a shitty thing to say, but it's, I think it is part of the conversation. And as an employer, like, how difficult is that to navigate? Like, it's almost like okay, why should my business have to do all of that? Basically, have to kind of make, have to help somebody. I don't think it's that. It's more the fact that all of these things are essentially, it requires cost. It requires time it requires people. And employers, especially in the UK, are struggling at the best of times. Not all,
Yep.
but it's fucking hard work,
Yeah.
So we can barely do that for people that are within the country as it is, let alone to support, any people that are coming into these spaces as well. So I don't have an answer for it, but it's a really difficult, thing to kind of balance, in that, as a, personally, yeah, we'd love to do that, and we'd love to be able to help and to provide all of these kind of services and support and things like that. But actually, is it actually achievable? It's not an easy
And
thing.
that's genuinely think that's why we have to be really upfront and honest about this and have that conversation, because you're right, it's what we said before. If you are just an employer of a small to medium business, why are you going to employ a refugee when you have to provide all of that additional support, care, train the rest of your staff to be compassionate and understanding and mitigate the circumstances? You're just not. You're going to employ somebody from the UK, so it has to come from government. They have to provide employers with the incentives, whether that be financial or practical, whatever it is. If they don't provide that, employers are not going to do it. Back to square one. Refugees, particularly women, are not going to get jobs, and therefore they are just going to sit there and be a drain on society. So I think it's really important, Rish, that we do say that's what the situation is, because there's no point denying it, is there, Hannah?
I think the way to look at it is a bit like employing, like it's like how women got jobs or disabled people get jobs, rather than saying as an employer, right, I'm going to go out my way and I'm going to go and find myself a nice refugee to come and do this job. I think you need to say, am I making this job open to everyone? Is my job advert, is my workplace, are my processes and practices suitable for everybody, and remove the barriers there. And then if there's slight barriers about kind of getting all the paperwork sorted and everything, then there should be places where you can go and get help. But it's about hiring the perfect person for the job, regardless of their background, their ethnicity, their refugee status, their disability, their gender, like all the other things that you would do if somebody was from Britain. So it's kind of just saying hire with parity, and is that the word I mean, Rachel? And
Equity, yes.
Equity, hire with equity.
It's very
absolutely.
difficult.
You're absolutely right. Yeah,
it's really difficult, and also like a lot of people will have like subconscious bias.
I was absolutely going to say that same thing. Just out and out, any kind of job role you put out, there's an instant, whether you like it or not, or you've got to be aware of that bias, and a lot of people aren't. So I think that,
because we're back to that. Even though we are lovely liberal lefty feminists, we are, every single person in the UK has been subject to this diatribe of absolute abuse that the media has put out for decades now. Yeah, absolutely. And nobody is immune to that. And you are, even things like, well, are they going to be reliable? Are they going to be trustworthy? If they're that suffering from that much trauma, how do we know that they're even going to be able to do the job and not go off sick every 5 minutes? Absolutely. Those are, employers will look at it in those black and white cold hard facts. What's the bottom line for my business? Somebody, I don't know who's commented, I'm really sorry because I can't see your name, but the comment is, it's definitely a big investment, and you would want to know you would get that back from a capitalist perspective. And that's how businesses, no matter how nice and lefty and liberal and friendly and loving and supportive a business owner is, you've got to look at it in black and white, money in, money out. Is it going to be a drain on my business, or is it going to be a boon? And
crux is, I think the crux though is to say, this person has all these amazing skills. Don't look at the name. Don't like speculate on where they're from. Look at the skills. Give them a fair crack and hire the right person, regardless of their status. It's back to that. So you're not looking at like do I have to pay a little bit extra because they need this, and that, or is it going to take me longer to train them or whatever? Look and hire for skills and competencies, rather than, I'm going to hire Brian because he's like, he already speaks English fluently and that's going to be easier, even though he's a bit shitter. you know, kind
But
of.
that's exactly what it should be, and that's a lovely utopia. But we're still back. That's just the recruitment stage, and we're still then back to the fact somebody gets to the recruitment stage and they realise, you know, oh, actually, that's a refugee. I'm going to have to provide language. I'm going to have to help them with childcare. I'm going to have to give them extra emotional support, potentially, you know, occupational health because they've lived through trauma and violence and rape. And you know, now I've got all these additional. Right, let's go back to Brian, because actually Brian was not quite as good, but he's going to be an easier hire. And until the government provides that additional support and it's there, it's just not going to happen. Anyway, I've noticed time is marching on. Time is marching. Go on, Hannah, quickly. Last one.
Last one. As well.
Oh, go on, Mish. What's your question?
Go on, Hannah. You go.
I was just going to say, like, that's where agencies are going to help, where you could ring up and say, you know, you don't necessarily have to hire from them, but you could say, I've got this applicant and I want to hire them, but I don't know where to go with it. What do I do?
Yeah, true. Go on, Mish. What's your question?
Well, no, it is for discussion, and I just think it's maybe not one to go into given the time, but is there something to be said for we come at this conversation in the business space of being from, you know, a small businesses, or you know there's not like hundreds of people, but is there something to be said for the corporate space that Claire kind of stepping in and getting involved in and lending a hand, for want of a better term, you know, in this kind
100%.
of conversation? You know, it's they have the means and the capability and the money essentially to kind of get involved in and actually provide
and also,
real support.
Yeah, and it's not a bigger burden, you know, and I don't mean this in a horrible way. Again, looking at it practically, you know, if you've got a team of 5 employees and one of them needs additional support, that has a massive impact on your business. If you've got a team of 5,000 people and one of them needs additional support, your business can absorb that. So absolutely, you know, those bigger corporations, they're going to have to help bear the brunt of this. But you have moved us nicely on there, Rich, because I just want to finish on the sort of things generally that anybody can do, not looking at it from an employer point of view, but what can we do as normal citizens to support refugees? And yeah, you know, there's all the obvious things. As you can make donations of clothing and sanitary products and financial contributions and all that. You know, I'm doing the ration challenge to raise money, all of that kind of stuff. And you can share information, help change the narrative about how refugees are seen. There's all of that kind of practical stuff. But also there is a lobbying piece there. And that lobbying piece is, you know, sign a petition, go on a march, contact your MP, whatever your level of lobbying you feel comfortable with or are able to do. But basically, we've got to change the regulations. We've got to change the support from government, as we said, financial and practical. And until ordinary people lobby for that, it's not going to happen. The pressure isn't there at the minute. So if we're talking about, you know, what can everybody else do besides the small business owner, it is that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think as well. I think as well, like, just as small business owners, fight that subconscious bias when you get around to hiring, and make sure that your business, your policies, your processes, your adverts and everything are equal and give everybody equal opportunities. But I do think it would be, I hope that in the future, this conversation is similar to the conversation that will have happened around hiring women. So, you know, making it you've got to fulfill a quota to hire women. And now where it's people with learning difficulties or disabilities, you've got to fulfill a quota to hire people with additional needs. And I think maybe if we legislate that there is a quota to fulfill, then the stigma will be dissipated slightly.
Yeah. Anything else as well you think people ordinarily can do to support?
I feel like you've already told me the answer to this, and I should be able to remember it. I feel like you've teed me up for this, and I can't remember.
We're going on, basically.
I think just do your best, everyone. And reading the Daily Mail. Read the newspaper and do your damnedest.
I think as well, there's the hashtag, isn't there? We stand with refugees, and I think being an advocate is one of the best things that you can do. Obviously, if you've got the skills to help, if you've got the means to collect things and practically help and start a sport group, all that, fine. Absolutely do that. But if you just haven't got that, if you're just a normal busy mum trying to do your best on a daily basis, just be an advocate, be an ally, and try and amplify the voices of refugees. So as I said before, there's loads of infographics out there, facts, figures, statistics. Just share it on your social media. Just do whatever you can to show a bit of solidarity with people. As I said, try and change that narrative. Go on, Hannah.
If someone's commented saying you can volunteer to help people write their CVs and find opportunities.
Yes.
If you go on do-it.org, that's an awesome website that's got loads of volunteer opportunities from loads of different charities. It's the national kind of volunteering website. That's do-it.org. I'll put it in the comments.
Yeah, as I said before as well, I've got quite a few. I've got 4 or 5 websites too. I'm going to share the links in the chat in a minute, and those have got practical ways that local charities. One of them has got a directory, so put your postcode in. It will tell you which your local charity is that helps refugees. You can contact them and say, what do you need me to do? Is there anything I can do? And some of it is, as I say, advocacy in a practical way. So go and sit with somebody and have a chat. Because again, if an employer can't do it to somebody, can we as the public, somebody doesn't know where to go and buy a suit for their interview, or they don't know which bus to go and catch to get to their first day at work or whatever. You can practically go and help somebody navigate your local area. Obviously, if you've got a spare room, if you can open that, great. But even if you can't, you can still help refugees that are in your local area in a really sort of practical way. So there's, as I say, loads of steps from tiny, tweet your MP and tell them to do something, all the way up to housing a refugee or employing them, and absolutely every step in between. But there is something all of us can do to help refugees and hopefully eventually get them back home. Hannah, final thought.
I feel like we've said a lot. Just everything you just said.
Yes, we have. Yeah. Reece, have you got a final thought?
No.
You always have one.
I know, but it's all been said. We've covered a lot today, so I think it's to digest that. I've got nothing more to add without kicking off another 20-minute conversation.
I know. Well, my final thought would just be a bit compassionate. Again, it's really easy to think about the practical things that somebody might need and forget about the subtle things in the background, like the culture that they've come from, like the barriers that they've already faced. And what as we said at the beginning, women face this even more. Women have come from a very patriarchal society. So they've got all of that. Then they've been through the trauma of war or famine or whatever it is that's had to make them flee. And then they're coming here and they've got all of these additional burdens of language and education and qualifications and all the rest of it. So there's a whole raft of stuff that you see behind that one person. And we've got to try and look at it holistically. So if nothing else, be compassionate. There we go. I'm turning into, what's her name? Ellen. # be kind. There we go.
Ellen?
Yeah, whilst I go and beat up my employees in the background.
Yeah, she's fucking dead in the water, mate. Cancelled.
Yeah. Right, brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you to both of you. That was a good session back. We've had a nice break. We are back on now to every 2 weeks, and our next session in 2 weeks' time is about discrimination in the workplace and how do we get more diversity into the workplace. And we've got Saj is our guest. She's coming on she does recruitment. So yeah, Saj is going to come on and talk to us about increasing diversity in the workplace. So that'd be a good session. 4th of July, I think it is. Guest. She will. Thank you very much, both of you. It is indeed. I'll speak to you soon.
Goodbye.
Wave. Bye.